Ladies and gentlemen, we are back now for our second episode of Unsung Heroes, and I want to talk about Bret the Hitman Hart on this episode. He is somebody who is recognized as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The amount of titles he has held in all different kinds of wrestling federations says it all. However, Bret Hart is someone who is often overlooked in how he is remembered in pro wrestling because of the infamous Montreal Screwjob, which we will not get into in this episode. We're going to talk about Bret Hart's success and what he has done before that fateful night. I remember growing up watching Bret Hart as a tag team wrestler. I know that he was with Calgary Stampede with his father Stu Hart. That federation for years before the WWF, and he's the son of a wrestling trainer, Stu Hart, and a promoter, and also he has a lot of brothers. Some of his brothers, were famous up in Canada, and some of his brothers came with him to the WWF. But I remember Bret as a tag wrestler. I remember the Hart Foundation. They were a great tag team. Bret was a very, very technical wrestler. Also could take a beating unlike anybody else. Could really, really get in there and he really knew how to make the shit look real, and he never ever hurt a guy in the ring when it comes to the aggressive style of injury prone stuff in wrestling. Bret Hart never injured a guy. So Bret Hart had a good run as a tag team with Jim the Anvil Neidhart as the Hart Foundation with Jimmy Hart. They also did some work without Jimmy Hart. I was actually at the I was actually at the Madison Square Garden show, SummerSlam 91, where Bret won his first solo title, which was the WWF Intercontinental Championship, which he won from Kurt Hennig, who's my all-time favorite. So I wasn't rooting for Bret in that match, but he pulled it out. And that was the beginning of Bret's solo career success. Bret then went on to win WWF World Title many times. I don't have the facts in front of me, so it's very hard for me to remember exactly who he won it from and what year it was and all that. But Bret Hart's run as a singles competitor in that world title picture, I believe, was either 92 or 93, and then up to 97. So, wrestling was changing around that time period, and the bigger guys like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and the Macho Man Randy Savage was even in that category, even though he was a bit smaller. These guys they had their run, and now there was a new generation and a new style of wrestler that was on top of the card, and it was guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels that were really rising to the occasion. Bret Hart carried the WWF through a very changing time period, and I remember watching shows like WrestleMania 9 and stuff like that, and thinking, is this really the direction the WWF should be going? Like, every now and then you get to a point when you're a real wrestling fan. Every now and then you get to a point where you say, man, this shit kind of sucks. You know what I mean? Like, this shit's not good anymore. And this is no diss to Bret, but I started to see that around that time period, from 93 to, let's just say, 96. Especially 95. And, Bret's run was during all that. So, Bret, this is what I've learned about Bret from just reading up on his career. Bret was somebody that just didn't really stop. He just kept going and going and going. So when certain eras, certain time periods or certain eras come about, he would just, work his way through it and find his way wherever he ended up. And it seems like that 93 to 97 era, Bret was on top, and wrestling was going through a very transformational period with new leagues like ECW coming up and WCW around that time. Let's just say 93, 94, 95 was in a very transitional period. And then by 96, we saw the formation of the NWO after Diesel and Razor Ramon went to WCW and became their real names, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, with Hollywood Hogan. So, Bret Hart found himself again at the top of the card in the WWF, wrestling guys like Mankind or The Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or Steve Austin. And, voila, the Hart Foundation got a resurgence or revival going as a stable instead of a tag team. And thinking back on that, that was a really interesting way to bring it back in a new way. I find that to be really genius how they did that. The Hart Foundation was a tag team, and then they became, a stable, and they turned them heel, which was really interesting too, because Bret was one of those guys that if he was, a babyface for too long, it could get old, But turning him, heel with these guys, and doing it almost like a gang warfare kind of thing, is really, really, really interesting, because they pulled it off, I want to just talk a little bit about, Bret's style of working again. Is Bret was an artist in there. He was a true artist with the way he would lay out matches, and you could see that. You could see how he would do that inside of his matches. There's not many guys, that I could truly say are not only naturals, but they embody what pro wrestling is, and Bret Hart is definitely one of them. I gave props like that to Bam Bam Bigelow on the last episode, but I think Bret Hart might even be on that tip on a different level than Bam Bam. Recently, we went to go check out a convention down at the arena, the ECW arena, and we got down there and we saw a lot of guys there, from Scott Hall to Barry Windham to the Great Muta to Harley Race before he passed, and the line for Bret Hart was down the block. And consistently for about 5-6 hours. So Bret Hart is on a different level of superstardom than most wrestlers. You know what I mean? He's in that upper echelon with people like Hogan and the Macho Man and we'll say Stone Cold Steve Austin. So so Bret Hart, man, he really brought in that old-fashioned style wrestling. And I think that that's like a really interesting thing, because Bret Hart debuted in, I believe it was 78. I think he was a ref in 76, but he debuted as a worker in 78. So from 78 to, let's just say, 97, that was a pretty good time to bring in that old-fashioned style wrestling, for the golden era and for what is now known as the Attitude Era, which I like to call the NWO era. But with that being said, I want to mention, one of the last matches that I saw Bret in that was truly just a fucking great match. It was Bret Hart versus Terry Funk in Amarillo, Texas. And I believe it was supposed to be like a Terry Funk retirement match, but he ended up staying on it and kept it going. But that match, if you go back and watch that match from 97, Bret Hart and Terry Funk in Amarillo, Texas, it's one of just the greatest matches, to see Bret Hart in. And that was, right before his life-changing event, which was the Montreal Screwjob. So, I just wanted to mention all this. We love Bret Hart. And we just want to thank Bret Hart personally from the Pro Wrestling Archives for all the stuff that he's done in the wrestling biz. And you know, we just want Bret to keep his head up with no matter what he's doing, and just to know that he will always be remembered as a legend and an unsung hero in this wrestling stuff. And when we say unsung, we want to make sure that you guys know, even if Bret Hart is recognized as a hero, we here at the Pro Wrestling Archives find it important to discuss all the great stuff that Bret Hart did in his career. So, yeah, this is another episode of Unsung Heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. My name is Rick Smooth. Thank you. Peace.